Welcome back, everybody, to the Forging Rates podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Couture, and this is episode 12. On this week's episode, I have with me Mitch, who is the owner of Deep Woods Firearms. Mitch is a local Michigan guy, just like me, and he actually has opened up a FFL, so gun store, for those of you who don't know what that is. And the name of that, obviously, is Deep Woods Firearms. We go over that and a couple of other business ideas that he had and that he had started. And he's done all this at the age of, I think he said 23. Yep, 23. So he's done this. He's actually just got into bow hunting. We talk a little bit about that. We also go over to just him being in college and then actually dropping out and then still having the drive to do all these things and kind of what pushed him and what made him do that, and more of the motivation behind having this drive. Even though dropping out to some people might seem like a failure, he didn't let that really be the thing that people labeled him with, and has gone on to create businesses and make a living doing that. So I think there's something that we all can learn from this, and I had a really good time talking with him. Definitely a fun conversation, and I hope you guys enjoy it too. So without further ado, I give you Mitch from Deep Woods Firearms. Welcome back, everybody, to the Forging Roots podcast, and I have with me Mitch. Mitch, why don't you go ahead, just real quick, introduce yourself and what you do?
Howdy, I'm Mitch Mantuffel. I own two businesses, New Era Signing Solutions and Deep Woods Firearms and Suppressors. I'm 23 and absolutely had no idea I'd be here in my life, but here I am on a podcast for the first time, and it feels
Glad
weird
to have you. Yeah, no. So you own two businesses. Let's take it back quite a bit. So where are you from? Where'd you grow up, and what got you to that path to eventually owning your own businesses?
So, I'm born and raised in Michigan, Macomb County, Chesterfield Township, New Baltimore. On the water my entire life. I was actually adopted from birth, which is something that like not many people know about me, and they always assume that's a deep secret or something. And in reality, like it's a big, like, cool thing for me to know that I am where I am because my parents wanted to take me in. So growing up, I went to a private Catholic school from preschool to 12th grade, interestingly enough. And so once I graduated 8th grade, I ended up going from St. Mary's in Mount Clemens to DLSL in Warren.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Yeah, I went to Parkway Christian, so I was pretty close to you. I had a buddy that transferred from Parkway to DLSL for football. So
Who was he?
Ricardo Marble. I don't know if you know him.
Oh, I know Rico.
Yep,
well, I talked to him, but I knew him. So yeah, I was at an all boys school from freshman year to senior year. That was definitely interesting. A lot of people, like, they always mention, like, oh, all boys. Wow, what did you do without girls? Well, for anybody out there who's been in a locker room, like I played hockey or any locker room setting at all, it was like that the entire school day. Like nothing but antics all day long.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. School was interesting. They were very strict. Like, if you saw me now, my hair is like down to my shoulders, and the reason because that was in high school I wasn't allowed to have hair below my ear.
Yep. I remember that just as well. Yeah, we had hair, whatever, dress code and all that stuff too.
Yeah. So I, going there, it definitely was interesting because, in that type of school setting, all you hear every day is like, oh, you need to do this if you want to make it through college. Oh, you need this if you want to make it to college. The entire emphasis of it was all like solely on college. I mean, DLSL's whole motto was builders of boys, makers of men. So it was like they really pushed a lot of ideals onto us, whether we agreed with them or not. And a lot of them I didn't. A lot of them I did. It was kind of a 50-50 split. So then coming from DLSL, when I graduated, I decided to go to OU. I didn't want to go too far from home, but I wanted to go away. So I ended up going there. I started at OU for criminal justice,
Okay.
which was very interesting actually. I wanted to become a profiler. That was like what I wanted to do. I wanted to become basically Criminal Minds style profiler, if you've ever seen the
Okay.
show.
Yep.
And I did that for a year there. And then going into my second year, I decided, I want to go into entrepreneurship. So I started taking business classes there. And OU got weird at that time period. I think it was like 2018 or 2019. It got kind of weird.
Okay.
It started to get pushed in some weird ideals, I guess you could say. And there were just things I would pick up on and not necessarily agree with. So I kind of kept to myself a lot. I ended up getting my own apartment. I went and got a 2-bedroom apartment and lived alone. Like I didn't even look for a roommate. I just wanted to have the extra space to live alone. It was so weird. Even my parents like, find a roommate. Well, I want to be alone. So I was doing that, and then I decided that OU necessarily wasn't for me. So I ended up transferring to OCC for the remainder of that year. OCC cool. I met more cool people at OCC than I met at OU, believe it or not.
Okay.
I think really what it was in that sense was it was like the people who are going to OCC actually were like, they weren't there on mommy and daddy's money. They were there on their own. So they a little bit more oomph to them in a sense. They were more proud to be themselves. It actually helped me a lot really to go somewhere like that, because it helped me kind of become more okay with being who I was at that time. And then I hate to say it, but money got tight at that time for me personally. So I ended up moving back home and going to Macomb for a semester. Also kind of liked Macomb. It was kind of nice to be living at home and going to school. And then COVID, and COVID was it was weird for me. I remember when it hit, I was all hyped up. I was like, we're in school, I was in the classroom, and somebody came to the classroom, pulled the professor out, and basically he came back and he goes, yeah, you guys are gonna be going home for like 2 or 3 weeks. I'm just gonna be posting some stuff on the web platform, and hopefully when we come back we'll get back to it. I'm like, sweet.
Right.
3-week vacation, not knowing we'd be 3
Little
years
did we know.
down the rabbit hole.
Right.
It's such an innocent thought back then. When I really look back at it, it's like, man, I was thinking 3 weeks, now it's 3 years, and I'm still like, COVID is still a thing. That's pretty crazy. So yeah, then I went back home, and it was weird for me. I really started thinking about what I wanted to do while I had all this free time. And I was working, but it was like, I really was like, okay, this is when it started to hit me. I was like, do I need college? Like, if I want to open my business, do I really need college? Because you're told that you need it. Everybody's going to tell you in your college, you're never going to make it anywhere. So at this point, I'm like 21, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh man, do I really need college? Like, or am I just spending all this money to walk away with a piece of paper that will get me into another 4 years of school that will actually matter? And sitting there and thinking about it, I started to play around with ideas of what I wanted to do. God, I tried a lot of different stuff. I opened up like 4 businesses originally before like I actually had a successful
What were
one.
some of those?
Car and boat detailing was a big one. That was the closest one I had before the signing company that actually like was profitable. But the problem with it was only busy in the summer.
Right. Seasonal for sure.
Yeah. So it was like, when you think about it, it's like, oh, that sounds great. I charge, $200 to do somebody's truck, wash, rub, and wax. But then it's like, okay, now they're set for summer. They're not going to be coming back until next summer. So that's a one-time gig. I did handyman stuff. Like me and my one buddy, we started doing like drywall, windows, you name it. We kind of did it. We put a lot of doors up. I like being handy with my hands, so that kind of was natural for me to
Mm-hmm.
try. It was just getting off the ground there. It's like a lot of people have the, oh, I'll do it myself attitude, and then they wouldn't need us. And then if they did need us, they would call us to fix what they effed up. And then it's like, now I have a bigger job than what it would have been if I would have just done it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, what else was there. I played the stock market a lot, actually. I tried to open up my own brokerage firm, but then I ran into just too many legal roadblocks where it was like, I just came to the conclusion I was better off investing for myself. So
Mm-hmm.
that's something I just started doing as like a hobby. And then, it's funny because during all of this, during me trying all these businesses, my dad refied his home, and he refied it at like a crazy low rate back when the market was really good
Right.
during COVID. And the guy who came to close on his house, he was young. He was about our age now. And him and my dad got to talking. I wasn't home. And I get home that day from doing this guy's boat. And my dad looks at me and he goes, "Hey, I got a good proposal for you." I'm like, "Okay, let me hear it." And he gives me this guy's phone number. He told me what he does. Basically, he goes, he's a notary, and he accepts, these home closings and goes to people's houses for 45 minutes and has them sign documents, stamps the documents, and then he gets paid about $100 per 45 minutes. I'm like, oh, that's pretty
Not
good right
bad.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh, really? That's not bad. And he goes, he gets to make his own schedule, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, okay, that doesn't sound bad. So like a month goes by, maybe two, and I don't call this guy. I completely like pocketed his phone number into my jeans, and I don't call the guy. Well, one day I throw my jeans on, and I reach in the back pocket to put my wallets in there or something. I feel the piece of paper, I pull it out. I'm like, oh, this is that notary guy, right? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give him a call and see what it's all about. Like, detailing, slowing down. I need to figure out something. Like, I got to call this guy and see what it's all about. I got payments I got to make and bills like everybody else. So I wanted to figure it out. So I call him and he goes, "You want to go meet for a beer?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll never turn down a beer." that's the Michigander, and I will never turn down
Yep.
a bet. So
There you go.
and so I go and meet with him, and we have a burger and a beer. We talk, and by the end of this whole conversation, he tells me about what he's doing and everything. I looked him dead in the face and I said, "Okay, what if I was to tell you I had an idea where we could make this just better?" And he's like, "Okay, I'm listening." And so I pitched him this what at the time I thought was a completely bonkers idea, where we develop a platform that open sources notaries for our company so we can accept home closings within the entire continental US. Total like long ball, Hail Mary, Brett Favre type of deal.
Yep.
And he's like, "Yeah, that would actually be super successful." I'm like, "Okay, well, what's the worst that could happen? We try and we fail. I've already failed 3 other times in trying to make my own business, and what's a fourth?"
Yep.
So we start, and that's when New Era was born. That was a very long, slow crawl. We had to figure out how we were going to work the platform out. We had to figure out a lot of stuff that me not being the most technologically advanced person, and him not being the most technologically advanced person, just kind of created roadblocks. Come sometime later, we had the name, the logo, the platform and portal ready to go. And at that point, in the strip plaza that my dad and I own, I looked at him and I go, "We had a daycare in there, right?" He's like, "Yeah." And I go, "We vacated them, correct?" He goes, "Yeah." And he goes, all their stuff out of there. "Yeah." "Can I go see the unit?" I haven't seen it since they left. He takes me in, and it's just this blank space. I mean, like, aside from the front door wall, the back door wall, and the 2 side walls, there was nothing. Pure emptiness.
Okay.
And I sat there and I thought to myself, I said, "This is perfect." So I figured something out with my dad and I where I'd be leasing from myself, which works great because, I mean, who doesn't want to pay themselves for location?
Right.
Like, that's, I think, the best part about like where I'm at is my overhead is so low due to that one fact. So then I went in and I built the entire office out. I drywalled everything. I did everything myself to kind of exactly what I envisioned it being, I went the whole country style vibe. We're out here in Richmond, so as you could imagine, like I went with the whole country style vibe.
Yep.
We have barn doors, silo fans on the wall, just super like
Okay.
super blue collar.
Right.
And then it came time for us to open. So we opened the business, and the first 2 months, I believe we opened in like November, December of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
It was. And the first 2 or 3 months were just dead slow. Like coming from other businesses that were more service, like commercial service based, not business to business service based, it was very weird because I was used to when you start like with the detailing business, you go and post on Facebook and then people reach out to you. I want my stuff detailed. Okay, I'll come detail stuff. In this sense, you are pitching to other businesses like title companies, mortgage companies, real estate firms. So here goes this 22, 23-year-old guy walking into a whole title office ran by old ladies. And you go in and you make your pitch, and half the time they're going to look at you like you're bat crazy, or the other half time they're going to give you a shot because they're like, hey, what do we have to lose? We'll give them, see what they do and go from there. So the first 3 months were spent a lot of putting my neck out on the line and getting rejected a lot. Getting rejected was like the hardest part of it. It's very discouraging when people just, they give you the runaround. And my partner, if he ever hears this, he'll understand exactly when, the minute I say runaround, because he's still dealing with the runaround now. Where, oh yeah, I'll call you tomorrow. No phone call.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Call. You call the office. Oh yeah, she's in a meeting right now, but I'll have her call you back right when she's out. Yeah, no phone call. You make one good contact who puts you in touch with 5 other contacts, and maybe you'll get a voicemail from one of the 5 if you're lucky. And when you start, that's just horrible. It feels so bad because you sit there and you have bills to pay, and you're like, oh my God, I'm not making enough money to pay my bills. Like, what do I do? And then things kind of picked up. We got a few clients and we started to do really good work for them. They were really happy with it. So then word kind of spread a little bit, and then more clients would go back to our original pitch, back to the original flyers that we would drop off, and they would call us and they'd say, hey, we heard that you can do, closings in Florida. We heard you can do closings in Texas. We made a deal with this one huge company, University Title, who they were trying to start going out into other states, and we offered that door to open for them for a more affordable price than if they were to source people themselves. And then people started hearing, oh, you're the ones who, did university stuff in Texas. It's like, yeah, that was us. And it was so funny because every time I would get on a call with these people, they would see me, they'd immediately be like, whoa, you two are the owners of New Era? And me and my partner, both in our young 20s, were like, yeah, that's us. And you look at them, and half the time they were so flabbergasted that you're not in your 30s or 40s that they almost don't know how to fly.
Right.
That's what made things interesting, because the people who did, they really benefited from us. There's a couple of companies now who they do a lot of work with us, and we really strive to give them a great experience with it because they were kind of with us from the beginning. And they didn't look at us that way. They looked at us as those young, hungry dogs ready for the fight. So as that kind of started to snowball, our program got more sophisticated. We added automators. We made it more AI oriented. So basically, when they submit an order to us, it's all automated. Everything gets, the notary gets automatically selected. All the documents get automatically uploaded, like very hands off for us for the most part. So I get bored. I went from grinding to get a business open to now I'm starting to get bored. One day a week, I do our back end billing and invoicing and everything. And that's like my busy day for the company. So as I was bored, I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, well, what do I, want to do? Like, how do I make more money? Because you can never make enough money, right?
Yep.
And that's when Deepwoods was born. I was sitting here one day, and I recalled a very drunk conversation with my best friend months prior, like maybe 8 to 10 months prior. And it was one of those 2 a.m. bonfire in the country, just too many bush lattes. And we're sitting in the garage and we're looking at each other and what do you think stopping us from opening a company that sells and manufactures firearms? We talk about all the roadblocks in our way and this and that and how hard it would be and how we didn't have the time. And so I'm sitting at my desk one day thinking about that conversation with them. And for some reason, and I don't know why I did it, I still to this day don't have like a firm answer on why I went through with what I did, but I quite literally just logged on to the ATF website, printed the FFL application, and started filling it out. Like just out of the blue, like just out of the blue.
Just like, okay, this is a normal thing to just want to do for no solid reason behind other than just one drunk conversation.
Quite literally. Like why I say I have no other explanation except I was sitting there thinking about a really drunk conversation. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Like what could go wrong? I guess the ATF could say no. Great. So I'll be out $500 application fee and they'll say no. Well, whatever. So I print off this application, I fill it out, and then I throw it in a file and leave it on my desk. I'm like, all right, I'll get to it eventually because you got to get fingerprints done and do some other actually send it in. And then every time I'd come into work for like the following week, I'd sit there and look at that folder and I'd be like, you know what? What's stopping me from actually doing this? Like, I know I was just bored the other day and wanted something to do, but what's actually stopping me from sending this in? So then the next step was like, I drove past the sheriff's department one day, the Macomb County Sheriff, and I'm sitting there driving by. I'm like, you know what? Why not just go in and spend the $15 and get my fingerprints taken? Like, then I have them, right? Like, so I just walked in and I knew the form I needed to get done. And I told the lady, she goes, oh, what do you need it for? And I said, I swear to God, my response was, honestly, I don't know. I'm kind of contemplating opening up a FFL, but I probably won't, but I just want them. And she gave me this most puzzled face ever. Like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, I honestly don't know. I just want to have them. She's like, okay, then. And then so she cashes me out. They take my prints. I'm on my merry way. And I throw them in the center console of the truck and I keep going about my day. It was so random.
She's probably going to this day like, I still wonder what that kid ended up doing with that.
Actually, I have an answer for you on that question later on. Just don't forget it, because she ended up finding a really cool way. So I go home and I go about my day, and then next thing I'm back at the office and throw the fingerprints in the little folder, and the only two things left are for me to go to CVS, get passport photos, which I swear look exactly like mugshots. Like they don't let you smile. Like look happy. You have to straight face it. And so I go there and I get those just one day driving by, and then now the whole folder is complete. It's ready to be sent, like quite literally ready to go. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe if I'm actually contemplating this, I should, look into it a little bit more. So I started looking into it, and I actually really realized it wasn't as not achievable as I thought it would be. Like there was no reason for them to disqualify me legally. Like I was up. Everything was in the up and up. The only thing holding me back was thinking, well, they're not going to take a 23-year-old or a 22-year-old seriously. Like that was the one thing that was holding me back.
Right.
So then in talking to my dad, he's like, well, just send it. Like, what's the worst that could happen? They say no. And I'm like, yeah, I guess you're right. Like, I'm just going to send it, So I put the packet together. I got my cashier's check, made out to the ATF and everything like that. I went and printed my FedEx label. I one-dayed that stuff right to them. And then I started this long haul that they make you take. I started an 88-hour long compliance class. 88 hours worth of
oh man.
All the GCA, NFA, like everything that you actually need to know when you run a gun store was in that 88 hours worth of compliance. It's basically the ATF's gift to you. And I use the word gift very lightly because they change their policies like on the daily.
Time. Yep.
But it was their gift to you as a future FFL to at least get your feet on the ground so you are compliant for your initial inspection. So I finished this class, and I'm actually, when I was in like the last few lessons of the class, I'm sitting in DTW Airport about to go to Orlando, Florida on vacation. This is my first vacation since like the start of COVID. It's been my first vacation and working forever. And I was like, yeah, I was so excited. I get to the airport, and we go right to Andiamo's, the bar right by our gate. And I just start slamming rum and cokes. Because I was just ready. And I get a pretty good buzz on, and I'm sitting down in the terminal waiting to board the plane, and I get a phone call, and it was a government number. I'm like, what the heck is this? Okay, I answer it.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, I answer it. I'm like, hello, this is Mitch speaking, and I hear, hi, this is so and so from the ATF. My heart just drops. I'm like, oh shit.
Like, no, this is not happening.
I'm like, no, I'm hammered right now. This can't be happening to me right now. And this lady goes, I know the initial quote on your FFL application is 6 to 8 months, but we just wanted to call and let you know it's going to be about 6 to 8 weeks until your initial inspection. And I'm going to Florida for a week. I'm like, in my head, I'm sitting there like, wait a minute. You're telling me I have 5 weeks at the shortest interval to have my entire business ready to be inspected. Later come to find out, they put me at the top of the pile because I was young and they wanted to try to get me slipping up or something. They wanted to see if I really had the stuff, basically. And she goes, yeah, so I just wanted to let you know that, and we're going to file all your paperwork and get you going. So if you hear from your IOI within about 5 weeks, then he's going to want to schedule an inspection. I'm like, great. So I hang up the phone. I don't tell anybody that I'm with. I was with a couple people at this time. I didn't tell any one of them what was going on at all. I completely played it off, and I was like, the only person who I told was my dad. I sent him a text, and I literally said, I'm effed. Because I didn't have the safe. I didn't have the security. I didn't have any of the prerequisites ready to go because I was expecting 6 to 8 months to get ADT in, get all of these actual factors that are needed in place. So I go on this vacation, and now I'm hard pressed to finish my 88-hour class. There was no more, I'll finish it, a little bit at a time. It was, now I'm taking my vacation. I'm finishing this entire class. So I finished it a couple days in, and then I immediately went and got the logo made, like before I even was gone from Florida. Like I came home with the logo already made, t-shirts on the way to be printed. Like I put everything into overdrive, like slamming the nitrous button on a car. Yeah, that was a very hectic time in my life. So then I came home and immediately got to work. Like there was no waiting. There was nothing. I came home on a Saturday, and Sunday I was at work, like buying a gun safe, getting a gun safe into the office, like really cranking away at all this stuff, trying to get everything set and ready. And a couple weeks go by, and then I get another government number call, and I go, okay, this is it. Like this is the one. And it was the one. My ATF IOI is on the phone, and he introduces himself. And then he goes, so I'm planning out to do your inspection. Is there any times that work for you? And me trying to be a polite person, I'm like, yeah, whatever, when's best for you? And he goes, okay, so tomorrow, 11 a.m. it is. And I'm like, you're joking. Like second curveball thrown my way. He's like, yep, so I'll see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. If you're not there, then tough luck. And I'm like, oh no.
Oh, geez.
I did not pre-plan this out at all. I have, for a little background on what you need for an FFL, you need people called responsible persons. They're people who can back you up as an owner and help with responsibilities. So I had 3 selected RPs, my dad, a longtime friend, the one who I had the drunk conversation with, and then a third gentleman who I knew was in the industry for a long time. And I call all 3 of them that day. I said, I hope none of you are working tomorrow. We have the inspection. If you're not there, I'm going to freak out. So all of the work off for the inspection all came out, thankfully. And then after we passed inspection, I got the go ahead. And that basically means now I just had to wait 2 weeks for my license to show up. And talk about the longest 2 weeks of my entire life. But in that time, I actually went back to Macomb County Sheriff, and I met with the sheriff himself, Sheriff Wickersham. And that's when that lady who gave me that super puzzled look. I walked back in and she goes, "Here for something you don't know about again?" And I looked at her and I said, "Actually, I'm here for my scheduled meeting with Sheriff Wickersham." And her eyes got really big. She goes, "Wait, really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I should be on the list." And
That's funny.
sure enough, these two officers come out in the lobby. They walk me back to the sheriff's office. They're talking to me, super nice guys. And I go in there and being young, it's like mega intimidating to go meet with your local sheriff, especially when you drive a crotch rocket, man. Like you are literally public enemy one to them. They know me already. So I walk in there and he goes, "Mitch, how you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm doing good. How are you?" I went to grade school with his daughter, so he kind of already knew.
Okay.
And I went to high school with one of his stepsons, both of his stepsons, but one was closer to my age than the other.
Gotcha.
And that's when I gave my first pitch of Deep Woods to him. And the way we designed the company is very weird. How many gun stores have you gone into?
I've been into a handful, maybe like seven total, somewhere around there, 7 to 10 at the max.
Okay, so when you walk in, usually there's this just huge showroom with a ton of guns, right?
Yep.
And there's like two guys usually at the counter twiddling their thumbs and waiting for you to go up to look at something and ask if you want to see it, right?
Yep.
So ours isn't like that. I went as far away from your normal gun store that I could possibly get. So what I did was I set up what I call a concierge service. So you come in, say you tell me that you're looking for a Glock 19.
Mm-hmm.
I sit you down at one of our conference tables and I start talking to you about it. I figure out your shooting ability. I talk to you about what you're looking for. I let you feel some different frames. I discuss pros and cons. And then at the end of the conversation, I pull out 4 or 5 different firearms and I let you feel them all. I let you see them all. And I kind of educate you on them all. If you don't necessarily come across me like you are a gun guru, like I am in a way, I actually sit there and I try to educate you a little bit. And
that's very important because just real quick story for you. Like when I went to get my first gun back in, what was it? It was 2020. I think it was 2020 now. Just before all the riots, like at the very beginning of all that during that one summer, went in there and thankfully, at least I was responsible enough to look things up on YouTube and do my research and not just go in and like wanted to be safe with it. But I went in and even called the head like, "Hey, I've never purchased a firearm before, blah, blah, blah." Kind of give them a heads up, hoping that they do exactly what you said, sit me down, talk. Like when I went in there, it was exactly what you described. Guy behind the counter, twiddling his thumb. And then I was like, "Well, what kind of gun should I get? Or like, what are my options here?" And wasn't really super helpful. And then I even had to be like, once I finally picked out the one that I wanted, he's like, "Okay, here you go." I go, "Well, can you at least show me like how do I clean this thing?" Just something as simple as that to me, not now, but I was like, this guy's just about to sell me a gun and I have no idea what I'm doing and I'm asking for help and I'm not getting it. So I like that you do that. That's pretty cool.
So I'll tell you why we do it that way. I was shopping in Cabela's and I've been shooting competitively for a couple years at this point, right before I opened the business. I was a total gun nut. That's just kind of who I became to be as I got older.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm shopping at Cabela's and I'm looking for a very, very specific firearm. I was looking for a Glock 45. It's a 19 slide on a 17 grip. Yep. Very specific. I wanted the 45 because it was in black and I did not want the 19X. Yep. And this guy who doesn't work there, who is standing farther down the counter, moseys on over and he looks at me like a Harley guy looks at me and he goes, "Why are you looking at that girl's gun, boy?" And I slowly pick my head up and I kind of just look at him with this just era of shock on my face.
Mm-hmm.
And he points to this 44 Magnum revolver with all the seriousness in the world. It's like actually I think it was a 38 special, but it's a snub nose. He goes, "This is what you want right here. This you can conceal and it will never malfunction." And he starts lecturing me about why that's better than a Glock. And in my head, I'm what he says in my head, "Wow, you really have no clue who you're talking to right now. Like I've probably shot more rounds in the past month than you have shot in your entire life." Because at that point, I was running a couple thousand rounds a month through my firearms
Mm-hmm.
and training, twice a week with a group of combat guys. Like I was very far down the rabbit hole. And he starts lecturing me, and I was very polite to him. I was like, "Oh, thank you, I'll consider it." And then I went back about my business. And then this nice woman walks up, kind of in between us on the counter, and she's looking at a 380 snub nose Ruger LCP, a little tiny semi-auto 380 snub nose. And he comes up to her and immediately starts telling her that that's not good for her. She needs to get this 22 stub nose because it won't break her hand and this and that. And I could tell that she felt really uncomfortable. And then eventually she does the same thing I did. She nods her head, acts like she is listening, and then he goes about his business.
Yep.
I peek over to her and I said, "Ma'am, I don't mean to overstep my boundaries here, but I just wanted to let you know that I would much more recommend that you get maybe just a compact 380 instead of a stub nose and just do a little bit of training, and you won't need to worry about recoil at all. I've trained a lot of women with firearms, and I can tell you that a 22 is not going to save your life or your kid's life, but a 380 will have enough. And if you just put a little bit of training in, you don't need to worry about hurting your hands or anything, to do with that." And the look on her face was just so much different. She actually had this huge smile. She goes, "Wow, thank you for being so honest to me." And the guy at the Cabela's counter walks up to me. He goes, "Man, you should work here."
Oh man.
So that is the story of why we do it the way we do it, is because of people like you and people like her. Yep. We want everybody to feel like they walk out of here knowing what they need to know, whether it's how to clean, or whether it's knowing that you should have the confidence to be able to shoot what you think is best. It's not so you're relying upon somebody who's going to make a commish, like the guy who was helping you and just wants you in and out so he can get the next commission.
Yep.
We want to see people come in here and get educated so they can go out in the world and be a better gun owner.
I say that's one of the things, because it's funny. That was something I thought about too. Like, I wonder what it takes. Because I was looking like probably about a year ago-ish about getting an FFL and doing the exact same thing. Because I was like, man, there's such a lack in the market. Because every time I go in, like now that I know enough, it's like whatever. But going in the first couple times at different gun stores and like just trying to ask questions, and some of the people behind the counter are just very short and abrupt and want to make their money, make a deal, do this or that, and rather than actually sit down, take that time with people, it does make a difference. Because I seeing somebody that's comfortable. There was one, I can't remember the store. It's up north by oh my gosh, Nub's Knob. I don't know if you've ever been there skiing or not.
I have.
It was right by there. And I went in this past February, me and my girlfriend, we were skiing, but then we saw the gun store. I'm like, "Can we stop?" And she's like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." And at the time it was Valentine's Day weekend or whatever. And we go in, and the gun store, the guy was super chill, comes in. He's like, "Hey, what are you guys doing? What are you looking for? Like, can we help you at all?" And he goes, he goes, "You know what? Before you even get to that, do you want a bagel or a donut? We got some sitting over there." And then he pulls me to the side. He goes, "And you can make her day, and we got a rose for you, so you can give her a rose for Valentine's Day." I was like, what the heck? Like, a totally different experience. Like, I got their business card, told them when I'm back in the area, because they had a private range. I'm like, I'll go shoot at the range, schedule a day, just because the whole experience. And they were cool. And we just sat there and talked, and it wasn't that intimidating, just trying to make a sale type guy,
That's our whole atmosphere. That's what we strive to do.
Yep.
I've had people who have walked out because they don't want to wait for our reps to be done with the customers we're already with. They expect it to be like Dunham's, where if you walk up to the counter and a guy's helping me, he's going to help you at the same time. We just don't do it that way. When you're sitting down with us, you have our full attention. The person's going to have to wait in the waiting room and wait their turn. If they can't do that, I'm okay with losing that sale, because quite frankly, I'd rather see another responsible and happy gun owner out in the world than somebody who's just going to get what they get and, look for the best deal on the market.
Absolutely.
Those guys are everywhere. It's about the people who come in and they learn something that kind of make our day here.
Yeah, I feel that's something important, especially in working in the gun industry nowadays, is not just doing the sales or being that guy, is actually teaching and having people be well equipped and have a knowledge, even if they don't end up walking out with one that day, that they've at least learned one thing that makes them feel safer about the environment. Or, okay, I understand how this operates, so it's more of a tool as much as the gun's not just going to go off because you looked at it funny, which before that I was one of those people like, oh, that's a scary gun, why do you need a AR, that's kind of intimidating looking. And then it's learning that stuff, and it puts you more at ease. I mean, knowledge is power, right?
I'll give this as an example. I run all the classes here, all the advanced classes, and one of them is a preparedness class. Mm-hmm. And the first thing in the preparedness class is we go out to my truck and I open the back door of my truck and I flip my back seat up and I look at all the jaws drop to the floor at how my back underneath my bench seat in the back is rigged up. And the first comments that come out of people's mouth is, do you really need all of that stuff? And to give you an idea of what I got back, I mean, I run a fully suppressed SBR underneath my back seat with a 60 round coupled mag, my plate carrier, 2 IFACs, a go bag, a get home bag, and just certain things that I know if I was to be driving home today and Russians were falling from the sky, I would be able to make it home to my family. And usually then they say, well, isn't a handgun with 2 mags enough? And I politely look at them and I say, a firearm is a tool. You don't try to take the lug nuts off a car with a screwdriver, do you? And they usually look at me like, no, that would be stupid. I said, so if you're in a situation where somebody's 100 yards away, are you going to try to use your handgun? If I-94 is backed up because there's an active shooter, and you can't make a U-turn, are you going to pull out your Glock and you're going to try to make a 100-yard shot with your Glock and probably wound or kill a civilian in the process? Well, no. And I said, that's why I have a rifle. That is why I have a 200-yard SBR that I can effectively stop and, as morbid as it sounds, take care of business, because I would rather be the one to step up and not just watch as other people reap the downfall of my failure to act. I would rather be the person to be prepared and to act to save somebody else's life. Right. And not everybody's that way. Not everybody who carries is that way. And I don't have a problem with people who would rather flee and save themselves.
Yeah. It's not for everyone. If you're not comfortable doing it, you could end up putting yourself and more people in danger if you're not that kind of a person, You
don't, and I tell this to a lot of people who come to the class. They say, you're here so you can prepare yourself. It doesn't mean that you're going to leave here being ready to go solo home clear like I can. That's just not a thing. That's not, it's taken me years to become effective at clearing a home and then learn how to educate people on doing it. It's not like I woke up one morning and said, oh yeah, I can go through a 2-layer home with 8 rooms in 30 seconds. I didn't wake up one day and can just do that. Mm-hmm. A mechanic doesn't just wake up one day and say, oh, I can rebuild your entire engine block because I woke up today and I have the knowledge. Everything's a learning curve, and you need to know where you fall in that learning curve. That's also something that's really important to our business, is when people come in, if they don't fall within a higher tier of that learning curve, I'm not going to try to sell them a higher tier gun because it's going to make them more money, or because it's going to make more money. Like, it's just not. I've had brand new owners who've never owned an AR before come in here and they're like, I want a binary AR. And I look at them, I'm like, do you think you can handle having something that's almost full auto? Like, do you really think that that's something that you can handle if you've never shot an AR before? And like, well, I don't see why it'd be hard. And immediately my first thought, I almost put people on their ass. Like, we had a shooting party and I got this big burly guy who definitely hits the gym all the time. And I put him behind one and I put the fun switch on one of our autos, and this guy almost, got put on his butt. And me, I'm 160, I'm not the biggest meathead in the world. I don't even go to the gym, and I can sit there and run a 60 round mag and not even flinch. So that alone, kind of proved to somebody like him that it's not your size, it's your form and your skill. And a lot when I showed them the video of that, they kind of realized very quickly, like, oh, maybe I should start off something more entry level. And that's kind of what we're here for, is to keep people from making a mistake where they buy something too big for themselves and then have an oopsie and either they get hurt or somebody else gets hurt.
Right. And kind of going back, one thing I forgot I had written down here. I noticed a little bit of a theme of doing all the businesses and the failing. And then even when you started your business, and people not quite coming in and getting discouraged. What was it that actually made you keep pushing forward? Like, because I know you mentioned too, like going, oh man, I'm not sure if I'm going to make bills. What made you decide, okay, I'm going to either wait a little bit longer or I'm going to try this other business? Is that something you've always like had innately in you, or something you just kind of learned as you've gone along?
You want my honest to God answer on that? Because it's actually really silly.
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
Are you familiar with the artist? Well, it's a pair of brothers, the Suicide Boys.
I'm not.
So they're this like grungy screamo style rap that's like super dark and whatnot. And they have a song, and there's a specific line in the song that like anytime things get difficult like that, anytime I have a moment when I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, this is getting really tough, that line just plays in my head, and it's like, when the finish line is far and you have to push the car, you keep on marching on. And I don't know, that's just stuck with me for a very, very long time, ever since I heard the song.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's my entire mentality to my life now, is the finish line is always going to be far. I don't ever want to stop improving or doing what I'm doing. But it's when the finish line is far and you have to push the car, you keep on marching on.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because I know a lot of people too, like if they do fail, get afraid and they stop, they won't try anything. And at least the common theme I've seemed to find talking with other people on the podcast and listening to other ones that people have on with people that are successful in what they do, there's always a story of a failure, if not another failure, and so on and so forth before they finally hit success. It's not an overnight thing of finding your niche and what works for you. Why do you think possibly people do just kind of cash in and do just accept the failure and say, oh, or even don't even start at all? Because especially like you said, being our age and trying something like this, like for me, the podcast, that was like, I don't know if I could do a podcast. Who would want to listen to me? Or who would even want to be a guest and sit down on the podcast, because I'm only 23. I'm just a kid. I don't really have much experience myself, at least that's the thought process. But then taking that step forward really does make a difference of like, oh, that's not as scary as it seems. But yeah, just kind of give me your thoughts on why you think maybe people, especially kids our age, don't take that step, or once they fail once kind of quit and just become mundane.
So I was a psych minor. So that's actually a really good question for me. People like comfortability. People are very, once they get comfortable, they become entrapped in being comfortable. That's something I've never allowed myself to feel. For that reason, is because my largest being entrapped in being comfortable. Funny enough, that goes back to why I ride a crotch rocket. Anything about them, they're not comfortable to sit on. They're not comfortable to be on in any way, shape, or form. And you go 0 to 100 in like 6 seconds. Nothing about that screams calm, cool, collected, and comfortable. Nothing about it screams safe. And to the people who are out there and succeeding, do you think that they're ever going to look back at all the times in their life that they played it safe and remember those?
Nope. Yep. No.
So the reason that people fall back into that mundane sense is they have this feeling of, I am safe, I am comfortable, I am scared of change because I don't know what change will bring me. It's the same mentality that people give me all the time. Well, aren't you scared you're going to die on that thing? Well, I fully accept that. Every day I kick my kickstand up, I might not pull back in my driveway. However, am I going to live my life being overtaken by that fear? No,
Right.
but other people do. And that's where that line is drawn between somebody who is successful and somebody who stays stagnant. If you take your finger and you dip it into a pond, you'll create ripples. If you take a rock and you throw it into a pond, you'll create larger ripples. If you take a boat and you put it in a pond and run the engine, you'll create waves.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has their own pace at which they create a change. However, those who take the largest risks usually meet the largest rewards.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see. Can you see my screen at all right now or no?
Yes.
So if you see here this book called The Comfort Crisis, it's interesting you bring that up. I'm in the middle of reading it right now as a recommendation from one of the guests that I've had on before, John Barklow. Uh, and in this book so far, one of the things they talk about is how, as a society, we have become comfortable. And the author of the book, he basically had never been backcountry like hunting at all or up in the mountains. And the first time he does it, he goes for like 30 days in Alaska, like just dives head first right into it. Like
he goes to 100 really quick.
Yeah. I mean, granted, he didn't go alone. He still went with a buddy of his that does actually do this stuff, but still, just even going with someone and being able to last that long. But he was talking that there was a study that was done. I'm forgetting the school that did the study, and they pooled about 2,500 people, different backgrounds of life. Half were men, half were women, like basically represented America because it was all shapes, sizes, and whatnot. And they asked them, what kind of life have you lived? Have you had loss? Have you had so on and so forth of just hardships or failures, or basically trying to decide, have these people lived comfortable lives or uncomfortable lives? So once they've kind of asked those questions, then they ask the people, okay, now here's a bucket of ice water, stick your hand in it and hold it in there as long as you possibly can. And the study found drastic effort. Off the top of my head, I don't know the exact numbers, but the number of people that were actually able to keep their hand in longer were the people that were uncomfortable in life and have gone through hardships and failures and weren't afraid to, versus the people that have, especially nowadays with their screens. Like, yes, what I'm doing here on a podcast is one of those things where people can watch on YouTube and sit there. But the whole thing is, it's kind of contradicting because I say, I want you to sit here and listen to me and watch the video so you get something from it. But the difference is I want you to take that and learn from it, then go out and go do those things and push yourself and go out in the world. But yeah, I just found that super interesting. You said because people get comfortable, because that's exactly what I've been reading right now in this, in that book.
You know, on the topic of hunting, do you hunt from ground blind, a tree stand? What is your preferred method of hunting?
So I've only been hunting literally like one sit last year for the first time. And that was up in a tree stand. But this year I'm looking into possibly doing some saddle hunting.
Okay. So the first time you went up in a tree stand, how high did you go?
It was maybe 20-ish feet, 25, somewhere around there.
Okay. So for me, when I started hunting, when I got up in a tree stand the first time, I don't know about you, but I was terrified.
Yep.
Yep. The wind started blowing and I could feel the tree swaying, and I was immediately just like, that is so not normal. And it was a ladder stand, even like it was like the safest type of tree stand possible.
Same.
So then I go like, in the next season I get a climber and I start using a climber, and I would climb up the first few sits. I sat at 20 feet, and then as I got more comfortable, I'd keep climbing up higher and higher. Eventually, last year at the end of last season, I was sitting at 35 feet in the air in my climber, because that was just, every time I went out, I wanted to go higher. That's how much I avoid my comfortability zone.
Mm-hmm.
The reason for that is it always helps you improve. And then it's funny you bring up saddle hunting, because then no matter how high I climbed on my climber, I was comfortable. So then the next step was, well, now I want to be in a saddle. I want to literally hang off of the tree. Instead of having a seat and everything, I want to hang off of the tree.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started hunting coyotes out of a saddle. Out of all things, I went hunting at 2 a.m. in the night, pitch black, in a saddle, hanging off a tree with an AR and night vision, and hunted coyotes. That was how I kept pushing that comfortability zone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to play a little theory here, if I was to ask you how comfortable you have been in your life, I would assume on a scale of 1 to 10, you'd probably shoot somewhere between a 5 and an 8. And the reason that I would guess that is because for you to do what you're doing here, for you to put yourself in a situation, like you said in the beginning, where you ask yourself the questions, who would listen to me? Who would watch this? Who would even come on? That is something, if a person was really comfortable with their life and didn't want change, they wouldn't have even tried. They would have thought about it. They would have wished they would have done it. They wouldn't have tried. So now I want you to answer the question, did I land within your comfortability zone?
10 being most comfortable or most uncomfortable?
10 being the most comfortable and 1 being the most uncomfortable in your life.
Yeah, I'd say you probably on the head. Most of my life's been about mid-range from like 5, 7, somewhere around there.
And that in itself is where you see the people who are willing to go out of that zone. I know a weird part of my life. I'm a scuba diver. I love scuba diving. It's one of my favorite.
Okay. Yeah.
My first ever dive, my first open water dive that wasn't in a pool, was in a rock quarry in Ohio, of all places. And it was November like 20th. So it was the middle of November, cold as can be. Like, I'm talking cold enough for when you get in the water, and if you need to blur this or like bleep this out or whatever, like, you had to pee in a wetsuit to like stay warm. That's how cold it really was. I was down under the water 25, 30 feet for over an hour and a half and just frigid cold water, like horrible. And that really, that I draw on that experience a lot, because it's taught me a lot of things on how to control my fear, how to control my anxiety and what I feel inside of me. And that's another important thing for people who want to succeed, is in that moment when you're sitting there and you're scared that you're going to not make bills, or you're scared that your business is going to fail, you need to find a way to channel that and not bottle it up, but channel it into success. You can't run away from it, but you can't let it overtake you. You need to learn how to control it.
Right.
If you can't, then I hate to say it, but you're not going to succeed. The overwhelmingness, the stress is going to overtake you. However you choose to handle it is up to you. Everybody has their own methods. But if you can't take it and turn it into something, you're not going to succeed, in my opinion. You'll fall back into that place of, well, I tried and I'm just going to give up, and I'm going to go back to my 9-to-5 job that paid me $15 an hour or $20 an hour, because I know that that's good enough to live off of, and I'm okay with that.
Yep.
You might wake up every morning excited to go do what you're going to do, but you're okay with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. People definitely get, and that's one of those things where I've listened to podcasts and hearing them say that, like, people just getting okay with it. And it just, for me, I hit that breaking point. It's like, okay, no, I'm not okay with being okay anymore. And I don't want to keep living my same mundane every day, especially during COVID. It really highlighted it. It was just like, get up, go to work, come home, sleep, repeat, get up, go to work. So it's just like, okay, nope, what are the things that I want for my life, and sitting down and writing those goals out and going, okay, how am I going to get to that point, and really pushing that boundary and learning to become, like, it is something I've had to retrain my mind to do, and is to get uncomfortable and push that mental toughness. And I don't think it's something like, oh man, you either have it or you don't. I really do think it's something that you can train yourself to get used to being uncomfortable. But once you get comfortable with that one thing that's uncomfortable, okay, what's the next thing that's going to push you to become even more of a well-rounded person and make you? Because one of the things I heard, this guy's name's Ryan Mickler. He has a podcast, says Order of Man, and he said, it was just like, wow, okay, he made a very good point of, why would anybody want to follow you? And that, which was already a doubt in my mind, but then he's like, no, really, when you follow the people that you follow on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, what are the reasons that you follow them? And then it was just kind of reflecting. It's like, okay, I follow this guy because he's done this with his life, or this account because they do that, or so on and so forth. And was the final, like, line in the sand, like, okay, I need to do something myself and push the boundaries. And it seems that you've had that too with your businesses, pushing forward. And even though you failed, like, okay, on to the next one, you know?
It's, I don't know if you go on TikTok. I actually
Yep.
create stuff on TikTok. And the reason I started is because somebody told me, hey man, you should start creating bike content. And at first I swore off that app. I said it was the worst thing.
Yep.
And then I finally made one just to create my own content. And in the process of doing that, I've been on there for about a month, and I've gained about, I think I'm at like 1,100 followers now or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just did a video. It's not even posted yet, but it talks about once you go down the path, there is no going back. Or, and it goes on, and it's, are you sure that you can handle this? And the reason that I made the video is because it's very true. Once you go down the path of being comfortable, being uncomfortable, there is no going back. There is no being okay with being comfortable. When you feel comfortable and you're used to being uncomfortable, you actually feel genuinely like not right. Like you feel like something is off. I use the saying, whenever I'm in my truck and I'm being a cager, I feel very uncomfortable because I feel so safe. I feel so protected. And I need my truck for certain things. I couldn't do my life without it. When we have range days, there's no way I could carry 50 guns on a bike. That's just not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's once you go down the path, there is no going back, because you're going to keep pushing. There's never going to hit a point in your life where you're going to sit there and you're going to say, yeah, I'm happy to stay stagnant from here forward. I promise you, as you continue to succeed, you will never hit. I mean, I could have stopped with New Era when New Era started doing it. I so could have just said, nah, I don't want to do anything else. I'm happy making my money, and I'm going to just, kick back, relax, drink some margaritas, and move on with my life. But it's those, you look at somebody like Mark Cuban. It's the people like that who continuously, they go business to business to business. And the reason they do it is because they continue to want a challenge. That's why they do Shark Tank. And it's funny to me because you see all these ideas on Shark Tank, and half of them are so brilliant, half of them are so shitty. And yet it's some of the things that you're like, there's no way that can be successful. And they invest in it, and then it blows up, and you see an ad for it later on in time. And you're like, man, he made that successful. Well, I think, what challenges did he go through to make that successful? How uncomfortable was he making that successful? Because you have to sit, they probably think to themselves, man, this is a Hail Mary. I don't know how I'm going to make this work. But they find a way. So it's a weird path that a lot of people sit at that moment, and when they realize, if I go down this road, there is no going back, whether it's putting themselves into debt that they're going to have to make it out of, or whatever challenges they might see that scare them, they get too scared to go down the path of no return. But it's those who go down the path of no return that find the light at the end of the tunnel and actually meet what I consider real success. I mean, you can talk to a 40-year-old house dad in Macomb County who works a 9-to-5, drives a Ford Fusion, and has 2 kids that go to Dakota High School, and they'll be happy. But will they truly be happy? And it's weird because materialistic things are something that we're always told that don't matter. At least I was. But I can tell you from living my life in success, one of the things that drives me to continue opening new businesses and continue to do new things is because of having the ability to live my life with no regrets. No, I bought a boat last year just out of the blue. I showed up at home in the center council just because I wanted one. Not every 20-year-old can do that, but the challenges that it took me to get there were pretty large. So it makes that feel even better. And that's what people fail to understand. When you work your ass off and you finally get something that you really, really want, it feels better because you worked for it. You know that you held something for it.
Earned it. Yeah, I think that's a great place to leave off. Like, definitely work hard, and you just encourage people by doing that, because, like you said, people get comfortable, and then you just don't, and it's not even materialistic things. It could just be having the ability to have experiences. Because for some people, they don't like things, but they might like traveling the country, and you got to have a means to do that. And you work your butt off and be able to save up to do those kind of things, or figure out how can you do that on the road. You might fail the first time, but if you work hard and you put your nose down, you can do it.
You know, I worked 190 days straight until April 26th of this past year. 190 straight days, Monday through Sunday.
Yeah.
And I went to vacation. I went right to Fort Lauderdale, 5 days. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't work my butt off. But I'll tell you one thing. When you come off of 190 days working your butt off, vacation feels really good.
Yep. I'm sure it does. So why don't you go ahead? Where can people find you, reach out if they have questions or inquiring about your business?
Gosh, that's hard because I mean, my Instagram is KRT_Mitch. It's honestly mostly bike content. Like, I try not to publicize my businesses too much. I try to really, like, this is the first thing I've ever done where I've talked about my business with anybody, honestly. Yeah. Deep Woods does have a Facebook. It's just Deep Woods Firearms and Suppressors. If you Facebook message us, I'm the one who's going to respond 90% of the time. And I have full conversations with people on there who just talk about what they want to do with their life. And, you know, you can always reach out to me on TikTok. Honestly, like, I'm on there more than anything right now because I'm trying to grow that platform. And, you know, even though it's bike content, if you reach out to me with any other kind of like questions or anything, I'm always there to answer. Even if you just look up my personal Facebook, Mitchell Mantuffle, it'll be a picture of me on the range with my plate carrier on. I'm always open for anybody to reach out to me. I'm a firm believer in passing down knowledge. I don't want to hoard it to myself. I want to see others succeed like I have the ability to do. And even if you want to shoot me an email, I don't know, you have my email, you can just post it.
Yeah, I'll link all this stuff too down in the description so people can just real quick click on it. It's easy.
But yeah, any way that somebody wants to reach out to me, I really don't mind. Just don't put my personal phone number on there.
No, yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And if there is something that you said that you don't really want on there, I'll just put what you want. You can let me know.
No, honestly, I'm a really open book. If somebody does want to text the number to inquire about Deep Woods or anything to do with Deep Woods, the Deep Woods number is 586-17-1906. That is a business line though, so I don't always answer. Sometimes it's one of the people here who works who will answer, but if you ask specifically for Mitch, I will get it.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, Mitch, so much for coming on, and enjoy the time together.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and I actually really enjoyed talking to you.